I'd like to welcome everybody to today's live webcast for the MSP community. We're really excited about this series. We've gotten a lot of great feedback. We've gotten a lot of good questions from our partners and other MSPs in the community. So I know how popular these topics have been, and we've got a whole series coming lately. So we're really excited to bring these to you. This week's topic is actually on the compliance during the crisis. So we've got a lot of questions lately about both supporting customers with compliance issues during this crisis, as well as different revenue opportunities that MSPs should be considering and maybe be able to take advantage of. So I think it's a great topic. We've got great panelists today, and I'm really excited about it. So just before I introduce them, first off, my name is Eric Gravitt. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at StratoZen. So I'll be your host today, lobbing questions into the panelists. And speaking of questions, if you have any, by all means, use the question feature in GoToWebinar and please submit them. Time allowing, I will absolutely get them into and over to the panelists and read them. If we don't have time, I'd still like your questions anyway, because like I said, we actually set the agendas for these webcasts based on the questions that we're getting from our MSP community. So by all means, submit them in, and we love to collect them all and put these kind of conversations together. So with that, I'd like to introduce the panelists. First, we have Jennifer VanderWier with F1 Solutions in Huntsville, Alabama. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
Hi there. Good to see you again. It's been a while. And we also have Chris Gebhardt, who's StratoZen's VP of Cyber Operations. Chris, great to see you again. Yeah, the attendees have no doubt seen you on some of the previous ones. Once again, Chris always makes me say that he's in a secure, undisclosed location, so take that as you will.
This isn't even
well, it's a great mask then, Chris. Maybe choose a better one next time, but it's okay. Well, let's go ahead and get right into the questions. So Jennifer, you and I spoke earlier this week, really in preparation for this call, and you mentioned that you've spoken to a lot of MSPs recently about the impacts that they've seen during this crisis. And so far, I like to start all of these webcasts with that question in general. So what impacts have you seen at F1 specifically? And then, with the MSPs that you've spoken to about those who are really struggling and those who are working out okay during this?
Yeah, so we're pretty fortunate. We're fortunate enough to be a member of several different peer groups within our industry. So we've been able to stay in contact with quite a few managed service providers as well as security service providers. And what we're seeing, I mean, I can tell you what we're seeing with us, and then I'll go through and tell you what we're hearing. So what we're seeing with my organization is we had a record-breaking Q1, which I think a lot of people were on track to have a very strong Q1 until March hit.
Right.
Fortunately, March continued to be strong with us, having to set a lot of people up with different solutions. And it looks like we're going to be pretty strong for Q2, honestly. What I'm finding is we're actually probably going to hit our budget numbers, if not even do a little better. What I'm finding is that MSPs that I talk to, the ones that are heavily in a vertical that really is affected by these shutdowns, like retail or hospitality or healthcare, people think, well, healthcare surely is doing great. Well, not really. not if elective surgeries can't happen, and not if elective procedures can't happen, and if you happen to have dental practices, that's not happening. Right. So it really depends on the verticals. The companies that I have seen that have been doing well and that I've talked to that have been doing well usually are fairly diversified over their client base. The ones that were struggling January 1 are still struggling today and probably getting pushed over the edge. But I think that the key to kind of pushing forward is just making sure that you're planning ahead. That's my goal. That's one of my rocks, is just to make sure I'm staying ahead of the curve before things, hit us in the face. So it's, the companies I'm seeing are successful. They have a planned strategy. They're communicating it clearly to the clients, clearly to the staff. They're making sure they're double checking what their income stream threats are. You know, what exposure do I have to retail? What exposure do I have to this? Am I reaching out to my clients? Are we proactively, you know, trying to make sure that we're taking those pulses and creating those plans ahead of time, making sure that we continue to share the value that we are providing them, because sometimes our clients are so well taken care of, they forget all the stuff we're doing behind the scenes. So we want to kind of remind them sometimes. So these are the things that we're noticing, is that very specific verticals are seeing some pain right now. And I know one on the West Coast they're 55% down for the month of April. So, you know, these things are going to be tough, but, you know, hopefully PPP money comes in, and, you know, hopefully you had some cushions to help get you through.
Yeah, that's good. That's exactly what we've seen as well. The more the MSPs are communicating out to clients, really talking about, you know, reminding them the value they're bringing, those kind of things, and certainly what you just said, the broader focus on industries has really helped as well. Now I know F1, you know, very specifically focuses a lot on compliance, especially around government contractors and healthcare. How do you feel like that's helped or hurt weather the crisis recently?
I mean, I feel that it's helped out a lot. We, about 7 years ago, when this thing called HIPAA High Tech was coming out, we started saying, hey, maybe we should really figure this out and know about this. And then because of where we're located in Huntsville, Alabama, this is kind of Rocket City. As we joke that, you know, Huntsville builds it, Cape Canaveral launches it, and Houston monitors it. So that gives you a little bit of idea. We have a huge space program here. The U.S. Missile Defense Agency is located here. So we have government contractors left and right, a very, very big government contracting city. But with that brings humans into the area. So we have healthcare is fairly strong as well. So those are the two that we started looking at 7 years ago when we were planning what our strategy was. The thing that's really helped us is not just being a managed service provider. Yes, we are an MSP, and we do have over 150, 160 clients under management, but we also do risk assessments. We also do pen testing. We also do our remediation experts on, okay, now you have your POAM, your plan of actions and milestones. What do we need to do, put into place to make sure that we are meeting those controls that you fall under? And so we become that trusted advisor with our clients, which allows us to also bring solutions to the table, whether it's healthcare or government contracting or financial, and we're able to introduce those solutions and, again, have reoccurring revenue from it. But also when I have one of my practices call me and say, we're going completely telemed tomorrow, help. We're able to jump in and we're able to make sure that the security is kept in mind, as well as the technology implementation. So that's really how it's helped us, has been able to make us the first call, not the fifth call, and to make sure that we're able to bring those solutions that continue that revenue.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned healthcare a couple of times now, and I certainly want to get back to government contractors, but I think healthcare is interesting. You know, like you said, a lot of people are really thinking along the lines of healthcare is a strong industry right now, and that may not be totally the case depending on the impact, but you know, specific to this session's topic about compliance, you know, what we are seeing is, regardless of whether, you know, the business is down or maybe their IT projects are on hold, you know, they're still having to deal with compliance, right? And it sounds like, you know, especially related to healthcare, you're still seeing an opportunity there around HIPAA and high tech. Is that the case?
Well, I mean, absolutely. About a month ago, I was getting calls left and right. Hey, I hear HIPAA has been suspended for telemed. No, that's not actually that's not what they said. There are very specific forgivenesses that are giving for very specific situations. And so being able to walk them through what that looked like, and then realize, you know, our clients realizing, oh, wait, I still have to do all this stuff. And explaining to them, you know, making sure they're understanding some of the InfoGuard reports, by the way. If you're not a member of InfoGuard, I would highly suggest that you Google it and join them. It's the FBI's outreach to the private sector. And they do share some really great logistical information and threat information from that. But knowing what nation states are coming after us, knowing that, I think all of us here understand that healthcare, health records are very valuable, especially on the dark web. And it's cash. And when you have an economy like Russia that runs off of oil, and oil was what, negative $38 a gallon not a week ago,
Right.
more cash revenues have to be brought in some other way. So yeah, the attacks on our healthcare system from the digital, from the cyber aspect have been growing exponentially beyond anything we've seen before, and we thought it was bad 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So these are areas that we're able to take advantage of, talk to our clients, explain to them, these are the threats you still have. Even in this environment, what would happen to your reputation if you had a breach and you had to report a breach? And let's make sure we still have these protections in place. And that means the managed service providers and the trusted consultants have to come up with solutions to offer. You have to have a two-factor authentication solution. You have to have a SIM and a SOC solution. You have to have a active threat, detection and protection. So you have to have all these things in place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, a lot of businesses lose sight of, especially before all this happened, but it's easy to lose sight of the fact that those compliance standards really are there for a reason, right? It's not just people want to, read a bunch of documents and reports and push paper around, and but they're actually there to protect pretty valuable information.
Well, Eric, in a time of chaos, that's the best time for bad guys to take advantage.
Yeah, well said. So over to Chris. Chris, the reason why we wanted you on today's session, I know you've got very deep background in compliance in a lot of different standards and that in previous companies as well as at StratoZen. So, would you agree that MSPs in general, the MSP community is sort of looking for maybe additional revenue opportunities, things like that right now, that compliance services would be a good topic to really focus on, or a good service line to really focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. I have the scars to prove it for the compliance world. Still have nightmares, PCI and HIPAA and all the fun acronyms. I haven't met a three-letter acronym I didn't like. But yeah, it's interesting because if you talk to like infrastructure people, their perception of compliance now is, oh, we can take a breather because no one's in the office, no one's using our environment in this area. But now you switch and talk to a compliance person, and they're like, you thought they were like totally freaking out before. Now they're really going, oh my God, because they realize what just happened. And what just happened is the scope around the compliance certification has expanded dramatically, and it's expanded beyond the corporate network to the home network, to the distributed network. We've talked about this in the past too. You've taken one access point now, and boom, you've got 500 different access points with 500 people working from home. So no, now is the time where organizations need the help of people like F1 that can come in and say, hey, look, you did this at corporate, now you need to do this at your home locations as well. And no, you just can't do a VPN and call it good. That's not going to be sufficient.
Right.
And the Office of Civil Rights knows that. They're going to be looking at that for HIPAA violations to say, okay, you distributed. Did you put in a VPN? Yes. Did you put in endpoint protection? No. Did you do a risk assessment? No. Did you? So they're going to go through all these things, and they're reasonable folks in their decisions, but they don't tolerate obvious mistakes. We all know we need some kind of endpoint protection on our machines, and they know that too. Encryption, one of their favorites. And the nicest thing is if an MSP can master an encryption deployment practice, that alone can reduce so much of the HIPAA risk, for these work from home and these mobile laptops. And even if you bring a desktop home for some reason, encrypt the drive. Burglaries happen. So
Yeah.
It's definitely a burdening area for MSPs to get involved in.
Yeah. We had a fascinating conversation on the last webcast where we had Don Baham on and with Karn, our Chief Technology Officer. We were talking about, we've seen a lot of customers request, hey, can I pause services for, a couple of months? If I just shut the whole network down, will it affect compliance, right? If everything's shut down. And I thought it was really interesting. Karn brought up a concept that I hadn't really thought about before. And he said, look, from a compliance standpoint, maybe you'll get by with it. Maybe the auditor will give you a pass because of the crisis in that. But the very next question you're going to get is, but what about your continuity plan didn't work and when you had to shut everything down? And I hadn't thought of that aspect. You closed one door and opened another.
Yeah, and that's an absolute HIPAA requirement. You have to have a business continuity plan. You have to be able to restore services, especially if patients are asking for their records. So a lot of these things are not just, well, we're just going to go away for 6 months and come back, take a vacation.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work like that at all.
Exactly. So Jennifer, one of the most common questions we were getting, especially right before this crisis, is about CMMC for government contractors, and we're hearing a lot about it. Everyone in the industry is hearing a lot about it, and so we're certainly getting that. Kind of like you said with HIPAA, I've actually been getting specific questions lately about, oh, well, CMMC is or is going to be delayed, so we don't really have to worry about that. Sounds like that is not the case.
No, not at all. In fact, I will ask everyone to listen to give me a little bit of latitude, because I do geek out on this topic fairly heavily, being located in Rocket City. So the cybersecurity maturity model certification is something that was born out of the fact that the Secretary of Defense commissioned a research study to see how many government contractors were actually DFARS compliant. DFARS compliant doesn't necessarily mean you have a POAM and a bunch of stuff you're eventually going to get around to doing. It means meeting all 110 controls of 800-171 from the NIST standard. He was fairly upset, from my understanding, of the preliminary results, and stopped things immediately and said, we've got to do better than this. I'm completely, upset at the fact that the Chinese have a F-35 that looks exactly like ours. So that's when CMMC was conceived. Some of you know Katie Arrington has been kind of the mother of CMMC, and most of the information that I get is from her briefings and webinars and so forth. So I would like to start this, but with a caveat. I am not a CMMC expert. Nobody is. The program is still so new. No one yet has been certified. No one yet has a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that is the level, by the way. It's level 1 through 5 of a particular maturity level that a third party will be accrediting you with. So just a quick little history here. Again, I'll try not to geek out too heavily. A timeline has been set. That timeline is they've actually done a very good job keeping to that timeline. From my understanding, the only thing that really has been pushed significantly, when I say significantly, I'm only talking weeks, not months, is the timeline for getting the auditors certified. So right now, for the month of April, which is over tomorrow, and going into the month of May, they will be accrediting the first C3PAOs, which are the certified third-party auditors. So the difference is you can no longer self-attest, yes, I'm doing all this stuff. Now you have to have the third party come in and attest. And oh, by the way, that third party cannot have had a consulting relationship with you as the client, meaning the end user customer, within the last 2 years. So for those of you that have managed service clients, you may be thinking, oh, well, I'll just go get certified and I'll be able to certify my clients. No. You have to have a complete different third party come in, or you have to decide, do I want them as a managed service client, or do I want them as an auditing client? And that's when defining that relationship is going to be very important.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. So working with others in the industry and that is going to be really important. Chris, did you have something?
Yeah, so SOC follows a very similar process, right? You can't have, your advisor can't be your evaluator. It's got to be separate. So it is a good point, for MSPs to say, where's the bigger pot of gold here? Is the bigger pot of gold in consulting services, which generally last longer? Or is it in certification services, which is a come in, ask questions, leave in a day and a half, 2 days? So it's,
Yeah.
I would go with the former rather than the latter if I was an MSP, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where a lot of decision making is going to happen. You're going to have to evaluate your contacts and your clientele and figure out, okay, this is the defined relationship I feel is most valuable for both sides, and potentially partner with those out there that are going to wear that auditing hat. As I am, I'm going to have another third party that's going to be auditing my MSP clients, and I will be auditing their MSP clients.
Yeah. We used to have a term, it's fallen out of favor recently, but in the IT world, we used to have this term of co-opetition, right? Where you would, kind of join forces with somebody so you could offer both services. You just can't offer both services to the same customer. So, help each other out that way. And I think this is a perfect topic for that. So.
Well, and Eric, if I can just add too, I mean,
Sure.
there's 350,000 Department of Defense government contractors in the U.S., 350,000 of them.
Wow.
The CMMC language is going to come out in the first request for proposals, RFPs, September-ish, October-ish, depending on who you listen to and what day of the week it is, but somewhere in that range. The first RFIs, requests for informations, are going to go out July-ish. Which means that we'll have a sneak peek into which 10 contracts. Katie Arrington has stated there's going to be 10 contracts coming out this fall, new contracts, not renewals, that will have this CMMC language in them. Those 10 will affect 1,000 subcontractors. We have no idea which ones they're going to be, and of course they're not going to publicize that because they do want everyone to go through the certification.
Yeah. That's really good information. And so for MSPs who really see that opportunity with CMMC and that I have no idea there are that many government contractors, to be honest. So for MSPs that really want to get into it, it sounds like they've got a few months they could ramp up a practice. And what would you recommend in general that, like, where do they start?
Well, step one is going to be understanding the CMMC controls. That's the Bible. That's everything is based on the controls. So it's not just 800-171 from the NIST standards. There's also RMM controls and CIS controls and ISO controls. They took 800-171 and sprinkled some additional ones within that. It's also understanding which levels you feel that most of your clients are going to try to get to. Like I said, it's a category 1 through 5. CUI data, controlled unclassified information, right now it's being said it will be given out at level 3. So most people are identifying level 3, as much companies are identifying level 3 as what they want to go after. Level 1 is probably going to be reserved for COTS companies, commercially available products. Mm-hmm. Nuts, bolts, wires, I supply them for battle cruisers or whatever. And so those will probably be around the 1-ish level unless they get some heavy augmentation drawings. So the very first thing that I would do is I would learn the standard. I would know the CMMC controls. The final documentation has been put out there, so you Google it. It's very easy to find. Look through all the controls. Once you understand the controls, you need to understand the guidance of how the auditors are going to rate it. A lot of these auditors are going to follow FedRAMP guidance. So you can Google FedRAMP as well and understand what the FedRAMP looks like. In fact, right now they're discussing having a reciprocation. If your cloud is FedRAMP certified, that CMMC will reciprocate that certification. That's a conversation. It's not a done deal yet, but it has been publicized. So the very first thing I would do, learn the controls, understand how they're going to be assessed against. Then I would start understanding how you would meet each control within your organization, your own MSP organization. Because if you have the unique keys to the kingdom for 30, 50, 60 government contracts, 60 like I have, I'm a target. I'm a big target. And
Right.
so my company is going to have to be CMMC certified, even though I don't have a single government contract. It's the new flow down controls that come through there. The very first thing I would do is get your own house in order. Look through the controls, figure out what remediations you're going to put into place to meet those controls. While you're doing that, you're building your bank of services. Oh, I need an active threat hunting. Great, I'm calling Huntress, or I'm calling this company, or I'm calling that company. Huntress is what I use, but that's just the company. What two-factor authentication are you using? What antivirus are you using? What SIM and SOC service are you using? What type of written policies are you offering to help clients write their data security policies? What kind of DNS filtering are you using? All these things that I'm just mentioning, I'm not going through everyone, meet specific controls within that category 3 layer that you may be shooting for as an MSP and that your clients will be shooting for. So once you've been able to understand the controls, then you're able to present these services and products to meet those controls, which can be reoccurring revenue, which gets them stickier to you as a partner.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really good information. I mean, if somebody's wanting to get into it, that excellent breaking that down and really putting it into bite-size, kind of tasks they can start tackling. So we're running up against our 30-minute mark, but that we might run a little over, and that'll be okay. So Chris, I'd like to get any final thoughts from you as we sort of wrap up the conversation here. Maybe we sort of deep dived into CMMC there, but maybe outside of that, any final thoughts or advice for MSPs related to this compliance topic?
Yeah, it's interesting that people think of compliance and it's like, oh, that's Bob's job, that's Betsy's job, and it's attached to one person when it's really not. It has grown so much that there's no single thing you can do to earn a compliance standard. They're all written to be very, very broad and looking across all components of your infrastructure and your operations. And so thinking that, oh, I'm just going to stand up a SIM and I'll be compliant. No, you have to be able to, as Jennifer said, you have to be able to have a remediation, plans in place. You need to have business continuity plans in place. StratoZen offers so many different services for a reason. It's to get organizations compliant. Could we do just one thing? Could we do just SIM? Well, sure, but now we're not helping our partners make those organizations compliant. That's why we offer vulnerability management scanning, ESOC, enhanced security operations 24/7 monitoring, response guidance, and all these other tools that we're bringing to the table to help organizations get that. Yes, it's a checkbox compliance, and that's the sad part about this is it's usually one single question on a questionnaire, but that one question represents so much background work. And so many different processes interacting together. Even our daily cybersecurity review doesn't earn an organization the checkbox of compliance. They have to have the SIM and all these other things in place. So don't think about compliance as a single item. Think about it as a very broad spectrum of services as an MSP should be able to offer to the organizations and to their customers.
Yeah. I think that's a good tip. And I think, for MSPs, again, looking for additional sources, maybe new sources of revenue, during this crisis. I mean, that's really something to think about what both of you just said, right? There's a huge, broad area of services and support that you could focus on to really gain revenue from the compliance industry. So, and Jennifer, for any final thoughts from you for our MSP audience that you'd like to close with on this session?
Yes, I think that moving forward, again, when we're concentrating on focusing on garnishing additional revenue through security services, identify the industries you already have a foothold in, especially ones that government mandate with a stick. They've got to do this thing. It makes the conversation a lot easier when you're going in, hey, I know you have to do this. I'm sorry, but here's what I've got for you. And yeah, that's great. I empathize with you. We got to do it too. Conversation becomes a lot easier when you're able to target those financial sectors, the government contracting sector, the sectors that have to do this. They don't have a choice. Figure out which one of those you do have insight into, and then target those. And if you don't have insight, if you're mostly retail or or other services, you may want to look at venturing into those.
Mm-hmm.
This
great.
Isn't rocket science. You can do this.
Spoken from someone in Rocket City, so we'll consider you the expert on whether it's rocket science or not. Well, listen, thanks, guys. Jennifer, pleasure as always. Obviously, it's fantastic to talk to you about this topic. I love the depth of expertise you have in these areas. And Chris, same with you. And I appreciate the expertise that both of you guys have brought. I think this has been a super valuable session. So we'll wrap it up here. We're just a couple of minutes over, which is fine. Again, thanks everyone for attending. Really appreciate it. And just as a reminder, we love for your questions, your topics, anything else that you would like us to cover in these webcast series for the MSP community. We'd be happy to. You can always email me directly at eric.gravitt@stratozen.com. But otherwise, I hope everyone has a great Thursday and a fantastic weekend, and at least some of you enjoy reopening the country a little bit here. It sounds like, depending on what state you're in. So thanks everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.